They said the Whitmore Hotel was the town's pride, a place where every guest left smiling. But after its grand reopening in 1994, not a single person who reached the third floor was ever seen again. This really happened, and to this day, no one can explain what they found when they finally broke the doors open. October 12, 1994, Whitmore. Maine, the town of Whitmore hadn't seen tourists in years. The harbor smelled of salt and rust. Half the shops on Main Street had for lease signs taped across their dusty windows, and the locals said the only thing that still had a pulse was the church bell that rang every Sunday morning, even when no one was there to ring it. So when the Whitmore Hotel reopened that fall, everyone called it a miracle. It was a 3-story Georgian building overlooking the ocean, cream brick, arched windows, a carved stone balcony that still bore black burn marks from the fire that had shut it down in 1967. They said the renovation was beautiful. They said it brought life back to the town, and they said later that it should have stayed sealed. The woman behind the project was Evelyn Marsh, 34, a former event planner from Boston. Local papers described her as the spark Whitmore needed. In her interviews, she spoke like someone trying to heal a wound. Places remember what happened to them, she told the Whitmore Herald. You can't erase that, but you can restore what's good. The grand reopening was modest. 20 rooms, a small restaurant, and a ballroom that smelled faintly of lemon polish and old paper. Evelyn had kept many of the original furnishings, the mahogany banisters, the antique coat closet, even a vintage typewriter behind the front desk that she insisted still worked. The only part of the building not open to the public was the third floor. The elevator button stopped at 2. A handwritten sign read, "Third floor under renovation, staff only." Still, guests whispered about it. They said the air near the third floor stairwell felt colder, that the old door chain leading upstairs was always rattling, even when the building was still. Among the first to stay were David and Caroline Turner, a couple from Vermont celebrating their 10th anniversary. They checked in at 6:12 p.m., according to the lobby's Polaroid camera log, which Evelyn kept for memories. The photo showed them smiling in front of the restored reception desk, arms around each other, a gold balloon visible behind them that read, "Welcome back, Whitmore." They booked room 204 facing the ocean. Evelyn remembered them clearly, polite, quiet, and charmed by the place's history. "It's got character," Caroline had said, sipping coffee from a white diner mug. "Feels like somewhere you'd see in an old movie." "Let's hope it's not a horror one," David joked. They laughed. Evelyn smiled too, but she'd already noticed something strange that morning. The electrician swore he'd disconnected all power to the third floor weeks earlier. Yet the night before the reopening, he found the hallway lights glowing faintly through the cracks beneath the sealed doors. He thought it was just residual current. Evelyn wanted to believe that too. October 13th, 1994, 12:14 a.m. The first storm of autumn hit Whitmore that night. The sea roared against the harbor wall. Inside, guests retreated early to their rooms. Evelyn stayed in the lobby, reviewing receipts, while Tom Alvarez, the night porter, made his hourly rounds. The clock on the wall, a restored Seth Thomas piece from 1942, ticked softly, each second sounding louder as the rain pounded the roof. Then the phone rang. "Front desk," Evelyn said. Sorry to bother you," said a man's voice. "This is room 204. I think there's someone walking above us." Evelyn frowned. "Sir, there's no one on the third floor. It's closed." "Well, someone's up there," the man insisted. "I heard dragging sounds, like heavy furniture." She promised to send Tom up to check. He sighed, grabbed the flashlight, and headed for the stairwell. When he reached the second floor landing, he found the door chain that blocked access to the next flight hanging loose. The padlock snapped clean open. "Evelyn?" He radioed quietly. "Yeah?" "Who's been up here?" "No one. Why?" "Because someone just broke the lock." Static answered him. Then, faintly, he heard what sounded like music coming from above, a slow, muffled waltz, as though a cassette tape was playing on a loop in an empty room. Recovered 1995. Exhibit B, 12:28 a.m., third floor cold as ice. The air smells like seawater. Light flickering. Heard whispering. I thought I saw someone by room 312. But that room shouldn't exist. Tom returned pale and shaking. He told Evelyn he'd seen light through the cracks beneath a door. Room 312. But when he tried to open it, the doorknob burned his hand. "It's like the metal was boiling," he said. "The whole floor's disconnected," Evelyn replied. "You're sure it wasn't?" "I know what I felt." At 12:46 a.m., the phone rang again. The caller ID flashed room 312, but Evelyn froze. "Tom!" "Don't answer it." "I have to." She lifted the receiver. At first, only static. Then a voice, low, drowned, and almost childlike. "You shouldn't have opened it again." October 13th, 1994. Rain had stopped by sunrise. The first guests gathered in the dining area for breakfast. Evelyn noticed 2 empty seats, David and Caroline Turner. Their room door was closed, but the cleaning cart outside was untouched. By 10:17 a.m., she knocked. No answer. She used the master key. Inside, the bed was unmade, luggage half-packed. A Lucky Strike cigarette still burned in a crystal ashtray, sending up a thin coil of smoke. 2 coffee mugs sat on the nightstand, one still warm, but there was something else. The smell. Salt water, like the ocean, heavy and wrong, hanging in the air. Police were called by noon. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, windows locked from the inside. Maybe they left early, an officer suggested. Without their wallets? Evelyn asked quietly. Or their car keys? Later, they'd find that the elevator's digital panel had recorded one trip to the 3rd floor at 12:49 a.m., but that floor didn't exist on the new blueprints. Local memory, witness interview, 1997. "I remember that night," said local fisherman Patrick Haynes in a 1997 interview. "The lights on the 3rd floor came on all at once. Swear to God, I saw shadows moving behind the curtains. It looked like people were dancing." But the hotel had been empty for hours. Over the next 3 days, the Whitmore Hotel stayed open. Evelyn insisted to the police that there had to be a rational explanation, a wiring issue, a false log, or even a prank. But she stopped sleeping. Staff noticed her checking the stairwell every hour. On October 15th, she found a Polaroid photo lying on the front desk that hadn't been there before. It showed the Turners, but the background was different. Instead of the lobby, they were standing in a hallway with red wallpaper and a chandelier above them. The date stamp on the bottom, OCT 1394, 12:52 a.m. The problem? That hallway no longer existed. It had been destroyed in the 1967 fire. "Did you print this?" she asked Tom. "No, ma'am. We don't even have film left." That night, Evelyn locked the typewriter in her office. The keys had begun typing on their own. She said she heard them spelling out a word. Stay, October 16th, 1994, 2:23 a.m. The police closed the investigation as a voluntary disappearance, but Evelyn couldn't let it go. She climbed the stairs alone that night, flashlight shaking in her hand, her breath fogging in the cold. Halfway up, she saw something move, a shadow crossing the landing above her. It paused, then slowly leaned over the railing. She swore it had eyes. Her flashlight died. When Tom arrived the next morning, the chain across the 3rd floor stairwell was back in place, reattached, welded tight. Evelyn's office was empty. Her coat was still hanging on the hook, her typewriter still on the desk. One last page in it. The ribbon was jammed, but 3 words were clearly pressed into the paper. I heard them again. Official record, Whitmore Police Report, October 17th, 1994. Manager Evelyn Marsh missing. No sign of forced entry. Elevator control panel removed by electrician. An unknown party restored power to the 3rd floor overnight. No further access granted. On November 2nd, the hotel permanently closed. The last night watchman reported hearing a phone ring from the sealed 3rd floor. When he picked up the lobby receiver, a woman's voice whispered through the line, "Tell them I stayed." Then the line went dead. The elevator doors slid open with a metallic sigh, releasing a stale draft that smelled faintly of dust and lavender perfume. Detective Clara Hensley stepped out, her flashlight cutting through the darkness of the long-forgotten hallway on the 3rd floor of the Whitmore Hotel. No one had set foot here in nearly 30 years. The floor was sealed in 1994 after the disappearance of 3 guests, a married couple from Boston and a teenage girl named Rebecca Lowe. But the air still felt alive, charged with the strange static of memory. "Keep your recorder running," she whispered to her partner, audio journalist Sam Vickers. "If the reports are true, we won't get a second chance at this." The light flickered over faded floral wallpaper and portraits of faceless dancers. Some of the pictures looked as if the eyes had been scratched out. A grand chandelier hung above the corridor, swaying slightly even though there was no wind. The silence was unbearable, until Sam's recorder picked up something faint. "Welcome back." The voice was female, soft, distant, and it came from room 312 earlier that day. Clara had studied the old architectural plans in the city archives. Something wasn't right. The hotel's blueprints showed only 10 rooms on the 3rd floor, but the manager's guest ledger from 1932 listed 11. Room 313 was never drawn, yet it appeared in every guest record since the hotel opened. When Clara asked the elderly archivist about it, the woman only shook her head. "There is no 313, sweetheart. Never was." The hotel's owner, Mr. Whitmore, said that room belonged to someone who never checked out. At the time, Clara brushed it off as superstition. But standing now in that long corridor, she counted the brass numbers one by one, E. And then, a narrow patch of wall where 313 should have been. Back in the 1920s, the Whitmore Hotel had been the crown jewel of Eastbridge, a glamorous stop for traveling performers, newlyweds, and socialites escaping the noise of the city. But one event turned it from luxury to legend. In 1928, during a New Year's Eve masquerade, the power went out just after midnight. When the lights returned, 2 guests were missing. One was a jazz pianist named Arthur Vale. The other was a young woman whose name was never recorded. Witnesses said they saw the pair ascend to the 3rd floor just before the blackout, laughing hand in hand. Neither was ever seen again. Hotel management dismissed it as an accident, claiming the couple had eloped. But staff began whispering about the sound of piano music drifting down the stairs in the nights that followed, long after the ballroom had emptied. The tune, a soft, repetitive waltz, the same one Arthur Vale had played that night. Sam pressed his ear to the section of wallpaper where room 313 should have been. "There's air moving behind it," he muttered. "Could be a hidden room." Clara aimed her flashlight and froze. The wallpaper pattern didn't align. A faint seam ran down the wall, like a door that had been plastered shut. She stepped back. "Sam, get the crowbar." They began to peel back layers of paint and plaster. With every strike, something echoed behind the wall, not just a hollow thud, but something softer, almost like breathing. Then the smell hit them. Rotten roses, as if something had been sealed away for decades and forgotten. Sam gagged. "Jesus, that's—" He stopped. His flashlight had caught something. On the plaster, faint writing carved into the wall. "Don't open the room while they're still dancing." They didn't notice the small red light on the corner of Sam's recorder blinking rapidly. It meant motion had been detected, even though neither of them had moved. Later, when the footage was reviewed, the audio from this moment was almost entirely silent. Almost. If you listened closely, you could hear faint violin music beneath the static. Then a woman's voice whispering, "You're early. The dance isn't over." That same whisper was mentioned in the police files from 1994. 3 guests had vanished after requesting rooms on the 3rd floor. One of the officers who investigated the disappearances, now retired, told Clara something the report never mentioned. He said that on their second night in the hotel, a night staff member heard ballroom music echoing through the halls again. When he went to check, the elevator was moving between the 2nd and 3rd floors, even though the floor was locked. When the doors opened, the lift was empty. But the floor indicator flickered between 3 and 13. The staff member quit that night and refused to speak of it again. Back in the corridor, Clara and Sam had cleared enough plaster to reveal an old wooden door. The number plate, tarnished but still legible, read 313. Sam hesitated. "You sure we should—" Clara twisted the knob. It turned easily. The door creaked open into a room covered in thick dust. But everything was preserved, as if someone had simply paused time. The bed was made, the lamp still glowed dimly, though the hotel had no power, and on the vanity stood a cracked mirror. In it, for the briefest second, Clara saw movement. 2 figures, a man in a tuxedo, a woman in a silver gown, both smiling mid-waltz, before vanishing into the reflection. Her breath hitched. "Sam? Did you—" But Sam was already gone. The flashlight lay on the floor, still on, rolling gently. Clara called his name, her voice trembling. Then, through the recorder still running in her pocket, She heard his voice, but it wasn't coming from the hall. "Clara, come dance with us." "It's beautiful here." She spun around. The door had shut. The knob wouldn't move. The mirror's reflection was changing. The wallpaper behind her looked newer. The room brighter, like it had reverted to its 1920s splendor. From inside the mirror, Sam stood smiling, his hand outstretched as the piano began to play. "Don't fight it," he said softly. "The third floor remembers everyone who visits." The chandelier above her began to swing violently, and the room filled with the faint scent of lavender and burning dust. Clara screamed, slammed her fist against the mirror, and the lights went out. 1 week later, maintenance found the door to 313 sealed again the following Monday. No sign of forced entry. No footprints in the dust. Sam Vickers was never found. His recorder was recovered from the third-floor hallway, still running. The final minute of audio captured faint music, laughter, and a woman's voice saying, "Another guest has checked in." Then, silence. The wedding waltz of room 313. The Whitmore Hotel had been closed for over 3 decades, but the music still played. That was the conclusion. That audio technician Marcus Reed reached after, spending 2 nights analyzing the last recordings from journalist Sam Vickers' device, the one recovered. Outside room 313, the footage contained faint violin music buried beneath static, consistent in tempo, looping every 1 minute and 31 seconds. It never faded, never changed key. When Marcus isolated the sound wave, he found something impossible. Each loop contained a heartbeat, not a simulated one, a human rhythm, faint but distinct, pulsing beneath the melody. The file had been sent to him by Detective Clara Hensley's department for analysis. But Clara herself had gone missing a week earlier, presumed dead after the structural collapse of the third floor. Marcus didn't believe it. He'd known Clara for years. She'd investigated crime scenes that broke seasoned officers. She didn't scare easily. If she vanished, it was because the hotel wanted her to. While scrubbing through the recording, Marcus caught something unusual at the 23-minute mark, a whisper. Overlapping with the waltz. "Play it backward to find the vow." He reversed the track. The melody transformed into something broken, chaotic, a weeping woman's voice hidden beneath. "Until the last dance ends. You are mine." Those words chilled him to his core. They weren't just lyrics. They made a vow. A wedding vow. Marcus drove to Eastbridge's municipal archives, determined to uncover who the bride was. The archivist on duty was a frail man with cloudy blue eyes. When Marcus mentioned room 313, the man's hands trembled so violently he dropped his coffee. "You shouldn't say that number out loud," the man whispered. "Not here. Not ever." But Marcus pressed on. After a tense silence, the archivist retrieved a leather-bound guest register dated April 7, 1928, the night of Whitmore's infamous masquerade. Halfway down the page, in elegant handwriting, Eleanor Whitmore, bride. And next to it, in darker ink, Arthur Vale, groom. It wasn't a guest list. It was a wedding record. The hotel's owner, Mr. Edmund Whitmore, had hosted his daughter's private wedding that night. The groom, the jazz pianist who vanished during the blackout. According to newspaper clippings, Arthur Vale was found dead 2 weeks later in the river behind the hotel. Though his face was unrecognizable from decomposition, the report described the cause of death as drowning, but no one could explain why his shoes were missing, or why his wedding ring had been melted into his palm. Eleanor Whitmore disappeared the same night her father sealed the third floor. Rumors spread that she had taken her own life, but no body was ever found. Still, every maid who worked there afterward told the same story. Sometimes, late at night, a woman in a tattered silver gown would appear on the ballroom balcony, humming softly to the music below. And if anyone dared look too long, they'd see her vanish into the shadows. Ascending toward the third floor, Marcus found an envelope inside the archives file, brittle with age. It was addressed to "My dearest Eleanor." He unfolded it carefully. The handwriting matched Arthur's signature from the guest register. "My love, the waltz you wrote for me plays even when I'm not there. I hear it through the walls, beneath the floor, inside my sleep. I think your father built this place for you, but it became something else, something alive. I don't think it will let either of us leave. Meet me in room 313 after the final dance. We'll leave through the mirror. Beneath the letter, faint water stains shaped like fingerprints. Marcus sat back in silence. The mirror, the same mirror Clara mentioned in her last audio log. He knew what he had to do. It was raining when Marcus reached the hotel. The building loomed like a monument to grief, its windows black, its sign half buried in ivy. Inside, the air was heavy with mildew and dust. Yet as soon as he stepped into the lobby, the faint sound of a piano echoed from above. He climbed the grand staircase, flashlight trembling in his grip. Each step moaned under his weight, the sound syncing perfectly with the rhythm of the hidden waltz. When he reached the third-floor landing, he froze. The hallway was clean, pristine, wallpaper bright, chandeliers lit, air perfumed with lavender. It looked nothing like the ruins he'd seen in photos. A shadow drifted past the far end of the corridor, the outline of a woman. "Eleanor?" he whispered. She turned slightly, her face pale and shimmering like porcelain beneath candlelight. Her lips moved, forming words he couldn't hear. Then she glided toward room 313. Marcus followed. The door opened for him before he touched it. Inside, the air shimmered like heat. Candles floated in glass holders, reflecting endlessly in the mirror on the far wall. The waltz grew louder. Full orchestra now, strings vibrating through the floorboards. Eleanor stood before the mirror, her silver gown stained faintly with river silt. Her eyes, though haunting, were filled with sorrow. "You heard it too," she said softly. "The song. It doesn't stop until someone takes his place." Marcus swallowed hard. "Arthur, he's still here, isn't he?" She nodded, tears glinting. "My father trapped him here. He didn't want me to leave with a musician, said I belonged to this hotel. So he built this floor for our wedding night, a place where time couldn't pass. But the curse, it turned him into part of the waltz." Her voice trembled. "Every time someone hears it, another joins the dance." In the mirror, Marcus saw movement behind her, a dark figure in a tuxedo, face blurred by shadow. "Arthur," the reflection smiled. Though neither of them did, Eleanor turned, gasping. "He's early." The lights flickered. The reflection stepped forward, hands reaching out from the glass. The air turned cold enough to sting Marcus's lungs. "It's been so long," Arthur's voice whispered, distorted and echoing. "Dance with us," Eleanor screamed as spectral hands gripped her wrists. She struggled, clawing at the air, but her reflection obeyed, spinning gracefully as the music swelled. "Help me," she cried. "Break the mirror before it takes you too." Marcus grabbed a chair and hurled it at the glass. It shattered in 1,000 pieces, but instead of falling, the shards hovered mid-air, spinning slowly like fragments of light. Each shard reflected a different scene: the ballroom, the river, the missing guests, all dancing in an eternal loop. And in one shard, Marcus saw Clara Hensley, her hand pressed against the glass from the inside, eyes wide with terror. "Clara!" he shouted, reaching toward her reflection. But Eleanor grabbed his arm, her touch freezing cold. "If you go in," she whispered, "you'll never return. The song will claim you too. I can't leave her." Eleanor's expression softened. "Then let me show you how to end it." She held out a golden locket, inside a small music box. The source of the melody. If the song dies, so does the curse. But it needs a heartbeat to stop, a living one. Marcus understood instantly. The price of ending the waltz was death. He looked at Clara's reflection again. She was mouthing something silently. 3 words. "Don't do it." Eleanor stepped back into the mirror, her gown dissolving into mist. Arthur's shadow followed, taking her hand. The waltz reached its crescendo, vibrating through the walls, shaking the chandeliers. Marcus clutched the locket tight. He could feel it pulsing, like a heart in his hand. He whispered, "I'm sorry, Clara," and crushed it between his palms. The music stopped. The air went still. The candles extinguished one by one. Then, silence. 1 month later, renovation crews reopened the Whitmore Hotel for restoration. Room 313 was gone. The wall where it had been was solid concrete, no seams, no hinges. But when the workers tore up the old ballroom floorboards, they found something buried beneath the stage, a cracked gold locket, still faintly ticking, and carved into the wood beside it, in fresh handwriting, were 3 words: The dance continues. They sealed the third floor again on October 21st, 2023, exactly 1 month after the last incident. The official statement from the East Bridge Historical Commission said only one thing: unstable foundation. Structural hazard, but locals knew better. They always had. In the weeks that followed, neighbors began hearing faint music drifting across the fog from the old Whitmore property. A slow, haunting waltz that faded when you tried to record it. And when a construction worker disappeared near the ballroom excavation pit, the site was quietly shut down. The story was supposed to end there. It didn't. Documented, November 12, 2023. Subject: Dr. Amelia Cross, historian and urban archaeologist. 37. Objective: to recover any remaining evidence connected to the Whitmore curse. The recording begins with the sound of footsteps echoing against marble. This is Dr. Cross. Time: 11:07 p.m. I've entered through the west service door. Power's been cut, but my flashlight's holding steady. I'm standing at the base of the old ballroom. Her voice is steady, almost clinical. She'd worked with police investigations before, but even through the tape, you can hear the undertone of dread. There's dust everywhere, wallpaper peeling. I can still smell the lavender. That was Marcus Reed's last note, too, found scribbled in his journal. Lavender. Always lavender. Amelia wasn't a believer in hauntings, but she'd been hired by Clara Hensley's family and the detective who vanished to find anything. That might explain what happened. She had no idea. She'd find something worse. The ballroom floor. By 11:43 p.m., Amelia had reached the center of the ballroom. The renovation team had stripped the floorboards before abandoning the site, exposing the foundation, cracked, uneven, littered with rusted nails. She noticed something odd. Faint circles carved into the concrete, each exactly 1 meter apart. There were 12 of them, perfectly symmetrical, forming a ring around the room's center. Inside each circle, burn marks, and in the middle, embedded beneath the floor, something metallic. It looks like a drain, she whispered. But why would there be one in a ballroom? She pried the edge loose with a crowbar. Beneath it was a dark tunnel, square, man-made, descending deep below the hotel's structure. The air that rose from it was freezing cold, carrying a faint metallic tang. Blood and rust. There's something moving down there, she said softly into the recorder. It's humming, then did a click. The sound of her flashlight flickering out. When the light returned, she'd switched to her backup. The footage becomes grainy, static-filled. Her voice grows faster. I'm going down. I count 12 steps. 15, 20. The tunnel walls are brick, lined with corroded pipes. At the bottom, the floor flattens into a stone corridor. Narrow, damp, claustrophobic. Every few meters, a small metal plaque embedded into the wall. E.W. Edmund Whitmore. The last one she passes reads Vault 313. The space she enters next was once a maintenance area. At least that's how the original blueprints described it. But in reality, it's something else entirely. The walls are lined with mirrors. Dozens of them. Old, cracked, framed in gold leaf. Some reflect her. Some don't. God, what is this place? As she pans her flashlight across the room, something glints in the far corner. An antique gramophone. Its horn is polished, but the turntable spins on its own slowly, endlessly. The needle drags across the vinyl, producing that same faint heartbeat Marcus heard. Then, the waltz begins. Eleanor. Amelia breathes. It's you, isn't it? The mirrors shimmer. Behind her reflection, the silver-gowned bride stands once again, motionless, her eyes hollow, her face streaked with what looks like river water. But there's something different now. Her lips are sewn shut with gold thread. The camera trembles in Amelia's hands. What do you want? She asks from the gramophone. Until the last dance ends. The whisper again, the same one Marcus heard. You are mine. Amelia steps backward, but her reflection stays perfectly still, smiling faintly. As if mocking her, she shines her light directly at it, and sees someone else's reflection standing beside her own. A man in a tuxedo, face pale, eyes black as ink, Arthur Vale. Amelia screams and turns. But no one's there. Her voice echoes through the corridor. Then, another sound joins it. Footsteps. Dozens of them. They're coming from the mirrors. not the tunnel. Rhythmic, synchronized, like dancers approaching in time with the waltz. Her recorder picks up her breathing. Rapid, panicked. I need to get out. I need to... The recording cuts off with a sharp metallic clang. According to official reports, the Eastbridge Fire Department found Amelia's camera 2 days later near the ballroom's foundation. The memory card was partially corrupted, but 3 fragments were intact. Fragment 1, the mirror-lined chamber, faint singing in the background. A woman's voice repeating, "We are still here." Fragment 2, a shadow moving across the wall, thin, tall, gliding rather than walking. Fragment 3, a final frame. Amelia's hand pressed against glass, her reflection turning its head after she stopped moving. Investigators described the images as optical illusions, caused by light distortion, but one forensics analyst leaked an unedited still to a journalist. In it, the reflection of Amelia appears older, her hair gray, her face gaunt, her expression lifeless, as if she'd aged decades in an instant. Weeks later, construction logs surfaced from 1928, signed by Edmund Whitmore himself. They revealed that the 3rd floor wasn't the only sealed section of the hotel. He'd ordered an identical structure built beneath the ballroom, an echo chamber, as he described it. A place designed to retain sound and spirit alike. A chilling note followed. If the living cannot stop the waltz, let the dead sustain it. 12 dancers, 1 conductor, 12 circles, 12 burn marks, and the conductor, the one who had to keep the music alive, bound forever to the mirror. 3 nights after the leak, a small team entered the Whitmore Hotel to retrieve Dr. Cross's body. The group included a private investigator named Elliot Kane, a retired firefighter, and a local priest from St. Margaret's Parish. Only one made it out. His name was Father Raymond Cole, 58. His statement was taken 2 days later at St. Luke's Hospital. He described the same mirror chamber, the same music. But he added one detail the others never could. There were people in the mirrors, he said, trembling. Not ghosts, faces, hundreds of them. Some screaming, some smiling. And when we called her name, Amelia, she turned to us. She was inside the glass, tapping, in rhythm with the music. He paused, shivering. But she wasn't alone. When asked who else he saw, Father Cole began to cry. The detective, the journalist, the technician, they were all there, dancing. On December 2nd, 2023, security footage from a nearby intersection captured something no one could explain. At exactly midnight, the entire Whitmore Hotel lit up for 6 minutes straight. All 3 floors, including the 3rd, long sealed, glowed from within, like lanterns and faintly through the cold night air. Witnesses reported hearing music. A waltz, 12 notes repeating endlessly. In January 2024, workers removing debris near the hotel's west wing uncovered a small brass key engraved with the number 313. Attached was a tag, brittle with age. Scrawled in fading ink were the words, "Under the ballroom, we still dance." An anonymous file surfaced online 3 weeks later. It was audio only. Static heavy, but unmistakable. A woman's voice. Calm, clear. "This is Dr. Amelia Cross. I found it. The echo chamber. He built it to trap us, to trap them. If you're hearing this, don't come here. Don't follow the music, the sound of footsteps." Then a faint heartbeat. Then another voice, overlapping hers. The next dance begins at midnight. The file ends with 12 slow piano notes and silence. The wind outside the Whitmore Hotel howled like a warning that no one would heed. The year was 1999, the last time the hotel ever opened its doors to the public. That winter, Evelyn Rains, a travel journalist with a fascination for forgotten places, checked in under a false name. She'd been following rumors of the hotel for months, whispers of missing guests, unclaimed luggage, and the mysterious sealed-off 3rd floor. Her editor had told her, "Just get the story, Evie, but don't go upstairs." She had laughed at that, but the laughter didn't last long. Room 209. Evelyn arrived just before dusk. The lobby was dim, the chandelier above coated with years of dust, but the place had a strange beauty, like time had stopped to preserve its secrets. The old caretaker, Mr. Dalton, handed her the key. His hands trembled as he said, "The second floor's fine. You stay there. Lights flicker sometimes, but it's safer below." "Safer from what?" she asked. He didn't answer. He just nodded toward the ceiling, eyes wide. That's when Evelyn first heard it. The faint, dragging sound of footsteps directly above her, on the third floor. But she knew the upper floor was sealed, the knock at 2:17 a.m. that night. Evelyn typed notes by the flickering light of her bedside lamp. The hotel seemed to breathe with every gust of wind, and the pipes above groaned like someone walking through water. At 2:17 a.m., a soft knock came at her door. Not loud, just 3 slow taps. She opened the door to find no one there, only the cold hallway stretching into silence. But as she leaned out, she caught sight of something impossible. The elevator doors down the hall were open, and the 3 button was lit. Her heartbeat quickened. She grabbed her recorder and camera and followed the sound of creaking cables. The elevator waited for her. Doors wide, light flickering. The air smelled of mildew and something sweet, almost floral like old perfume, against every instinct. Evelyn stepped inside. The ride up was silent, except for a faint, steady hum, like music heard through a wall. When the doors opened, the air turned icy cold. The third floor was perfectly preserved. Velvet wallpaper, polished wood, golden sconces. It was as if no time had passed since the 1920s. Evelyn whispered into her recorder, "I'm on the third floor." "It's impossible. It's supposed to be sealed." Then she heard voices. They echoed from the end of the hall. Laughter, glasses clinking, faint music, like a ballroom in full swing. The same tune that had been recorded in those old tapes police found decades ago. She followed the sound, her shoes sinking slightly into the plush carpet. But as she reached the corner, the music stopped. The hallway ahead was empty, except for a single open door, room 313. Evelyn pushed the door open slowly. Inside, a grand mirror hung across from the bed, its silver frame tarnished but intact. She stepped closer and froze. In the reflection, the room was alive. Chandeliers sparkled. People in elegant gowns danced across the floor. Men in tuxedos toasted with champagne. The reflection showed a ballroom, not the dusty room she was standing in. But what made her blood turn cold? She could see herself standing among them. Her mirrored self was smiling, glass in hand, turning to face her. And then it spoke. "You made it to the third floor." Finally, Evelyn stumbled backward, dropping her recorder. The image flickered. Faces turned toward her reflection, eyes hollow and dark. The music warped into a scream of violins before the mirror cracked with a deafening sound. When she looked again, the reflection was gone. Only her pale, terrified face remained. She ran into the hall, gasping. The elevator doors had vanished. Only a stretch of wallpaper covered where they should have been. Panicked, Evelyn began banging on doors. "Hello, anyone here?" One of them opened slowly, and Mr. Dalton stepped out, eyes glassy, expression blank. But he wasn't real. His skin was ashen, lips blue, clothes soaked through with water. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "They keep what they like." Behind him, the walls moved, like something alive was shifting underneath the wallpaper. Evelyn turned and sprinted down the hall, heart hammering. Every door she passed opened just a crack, revealing glimpses of the ballroom, people frozen mid-dance, eyes staring out through glassy smiles. Then the floor beneath her feet groaned. A shadow stretched across the hallway. At the far end, a woman in a white 1920s gown stood perfectly still. Her hair fell in soft curls, her skin ghostly pale. "Are you lost?" she asked gently. Evelyn tried to speak, but her throat locked. The woman smiled. A kind smile at first, then it shifted, stretching too wide. "We've been waiting for someone new." The walls pulsed, as though breathing in unison. The carpet beneath Evelyn's feet rippled like water, and she stumbled backward into the elevator shaft. Or what she thought was one. It wasn't. It was the ballroom, submerged in darkness. Dozens of faces surrounded her, faces she recognized from old news clippings. The missing guests, the ones who had never checked out. They began to move toward her, whispering her name. "Evelyn, stay and dance." The next morning, the police entered Whitmore after neighbors reported. Screams and flickering lights. They found Evelyn's belongings neatly arranged in room 209. Her recorder was on the Desk, still running. The last minute of the tape captured her trembling voice. If anyone finds this, don't come to the third floor. It's not a floor. It's a reflection of everyone who never left. Then, faintly under her voice, it came the sound of music, a waltz, and Evelyn's laughter. The Whitmore Hotel was permanently closed after that night. Police sealed the building, claiming structural hazards, though no one explained what they meant. But sometimes, especially on stormy nights, neighbors still swear they see light flickering on the third floor, even though the windows were bricked shut years ago, and if you stand outside long enough, you might hear it too, a faint melody drifting through the rain, the echo of a party that never ends. 20 years had passed since Evelyn Raines vanished inside the Whitmore Hotel. In that time, the building had decayed into a rotting skeleton at the edge of the city, its windows boarded, its halls filled with silence and dust. But in the winter of 2019, the Whitmore drew one last visitor. His name was Lucas Raines, Evelyn's younger brother. He had grown up haunted by her disappearance, listening to that final recording hundreds of times, every word burned into his memory. It's not a floor. It's a reflection of everyone who never left. He didn't believe in ghosts, not really. But the sound of her laughter at the end, that had never let him rest. So when the city finally announced plans to demolish the Whitmore, Lucas did the unthinkable. He broke in, on her birthday. The air inside the hotel felt heavier than he expected, like the place remembered every scream it had swallowed. The wallpaper was torn, the floorboards soft with rot, and the faint scent of mildew filled his lungs. Yet somehow, beneath it all, there was that same perfume Evelyn had described in her notes. Something floral, elegant, and ancient. Lucas carried only a flashlight and a digital recorder. He wasn't here for proof. He was here for closure. He passed room 209, Evelyn's last known room, and froze. The door was already open. Inside, her typewriter still sat on the desk, rusted and broken. But there was something else, a fresh footprint in the dust. Small, bare, and recent. He lifted the recorder. Someone's been here, or still is. Then, as if on cue, the elevator at the end of the hall dinged. Lucas turned. The elevator doors, once sealed, slid open with a slow mechanical whine. The light inside flickered pale yellow. The 3 button glowed softly, waiting. He whispered, "Evelyn." Something, maybe memory, maybe madness, pulled him forward. He stepped in. As the doors closed, the walls trembled and the air thickened. The music began faintly, a violin tune, warped and distant, playing the same melody captured in Evelyn's final recording. When the doors opened, the smell hit him first. Old wood polish, champagne, perfume. Then the lights blazed on, revealing the third floor, pristine, shining, untouched by time. It was exactly as Evelyn had described. Down the corridor, he saw the open door to room 313. Every instinct told him to turn back, but he couldn't. He had come too far to stop. As he stepped through, the world changed. The cracked wallpaper vanished. The floor glowed under chandeliers. A gramophone spun in the corner, filling the air with soft waltz music. Dozens of people danced in elegant silence, faces pale, eyes glassy, movements too smooth to be alive. Lucas whispered, "Evelyn." The dancers froze. Every head turned toward him in unison, and from the center of the floor, a woman in a white gown slowly turned. Her hair, her face, her trembling smile. It was Evelyn. For a moment, time didn't exist. Lucas ran to her, but as he reached out, his hand passed straight through her arm, like she was made of smoke and light. "You came," she whispered. "You shouldn't have." Tears filled his eyes. "Evie, I'm getting you out." "Whatever this is, it ends tonight." She shook her head slowly. "You can't end it. The floor isn't a place. It's a mirror. It shows what the hotel wants. It feeds on those who look too long." Lucas backed away. "That doesn't make sense. You're alive." "You have to be." Evelyn's smile faded. Her eyes flicked toward the cracked mirror on the far wall, the same one from her recording. They used the mirror to keep them here. The hotel. It was built on a promise. Every guest who died, they were trapped in their reflection. The owner thought he was preserving beauty. He was building a prison. She reached for him, but her hand began to flicker, her voice breaking into static. "Lucas, you can still leave, but not if you look." A voice, deep and smooth, echoed from behind. But he already has. Lucas spun around. A tall man in a black suit stood by the mirror, his reflection perfectly still even when he moved. His face was ageless, handsome but wrong. His eyes were hollow, shining with a faint amber light. Every guest saw themselves here, the man said calmly, and every one of them wanted to stay just a little longer. Isn't that how all beauty traps you? Lucas felt the air grow heavier. The dancers began to move again, surrounding him slowly, their footsteps silent. Who are you? Lucas demanded. I am the caretaker of the reflection, the man said. The architect's son. I keep the promise my father made, that no guest ever leaves unchanged. Evelyn screamed, Lucas, don't listen. The man tilted his head. You came here for her, didn't you? Then join her. Stay. Dance. Forget the world that forgot you. He lifted a hand, and the mirror began to shimmer like water. In its surface, Lucas saw himself, dancing, smiling, eyes empty, hand in hand with Evelyn. The reflection reached out. Lucas took a step back, heart pounding. He remembered Evelyn's words. It's not a floor. It's a reflection. He realized the mirror was the key. If it trapped them, maybe it could free them too. He looked at Evelyn. If it's a mirror, then what happens when it's broken? Her eyes widened in understanding. You can't destroy it. It'll fight back. He didn't care. Lucas grabbed a brass candelabra from the table and hurled it toward the glass. The mirror cracked, a thin line spreading like lightning across its surface. The room screamed. The dancers convulsed, faces twisting. The man in black lunged forward, voice booming like thunder. You fool! You'll unmake everything. Lucas struck again. The mirror shattered completely, shards exploding across the floor like falling stars. The walls of the third floor began to melt. Chandeliers dropped. The music warped into static. Every dancer dissolved into light and vanished into the cracks. Evelyn fell to her knees, her body flickering between form and shadow. Lucas, it's working. You're breaking it. But you have to go. He reached for her. Not without you. She smiled through tears. I've been gone a long time, but now, maybe I can rest. She pressed her palm to his cheek. For a brief second, he felt her warmth, her heartbeat. Then she whispered, Tell them it wasn't the hotel that killed us. It was the promise. The floor split open beneath him. A blinding white light swallowed everything. Lucas woke up outside, coughing, covered in dust. The Whitmore Hotel stood behind him, silent, its windows dark. Then before his eyes, the building collapsed in on itself, like a house of cards pulled inward by invisible hands. When rescuers found him hours later, he was sitting in the rubble, holding a single shard of glass. Inside it, for just a second, he saw Evelyn smiling, whole, peaceful, fading into light. 1 year later, a luxury apartment complex now stands where Whitmore once did. The developers kept one piece of the original structure, an ornate mirror, restored and placed in the lobby as a tribute to history. But locals say that if you pass by after midnight, the reflection sometimes changes. You might see a ballroom, a woman in white, and a man standing beside her, watching. The music plays faintly, just long enough to make you wonder if you imagined it. And if you look a moment too long, you might see yourself already dancing among them. The end.